They told you to chase happiness, to follow your bliss, to stay soft, agreeable, kind, and maybe you believed them. Maybe that's why you're tired all the time, not just in your body but in your soul. Because this idea that happiness is the goal, that if you just stay calm, patient, nice enough, life will eventually be kind to you, is the biggest lie you were ever sold. You were trained to believe that comfort is the prize, that peace comes from pleasing everyone around you, that saying yes when you mean no makes you a good person. But look at what it cost you. You've been breaking your own back to keep people comfortable. You've been swallowing your truth, biting your tongue, killing your voice to maintain harmony. And in return, they walk all over you. They praise you for your patience while they test your limits. They call you kind, even as they drain you dry. And deep down you know it. You feel the resentment, the quiet rage, the ache in your chest when you smile and say it's fine when it's not. This isn't love. This isn't peace. This is fear in disguise. Fear of being left. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of being alone if you ever chose yourself. You were taught to be small, not out of cruelty but control. Because the world does not reward softness unless it's convenient. It uses it. And when you finally wake up to this, the betrayal stings. Because it wasn't just one person who conditioned you, it was everyone. Your teachers, your family, your culture, even your spirituality. If it told you that anger is wrong and boundaries are ego, you were told to forgive instead of confront, to surrender instead of resist, to let go instead of speak up. And so you did. Over and over you let it go until you let go of yourself. What no one told you is that happiness without power is a trap. It is a house built on someone else's ground. It only lasts as long as other people are pleased with you. And the second they're not, it collapses. You bend yourself to fit their image. You lower your voice, dull your fire, shrink your opinions. And they still leave. They still criticize you. They still take. And you sit there wondering what more you could have done. But the truth is, it's not about what you do. It's about what you allow. And you've allowed too much. You were not taught how to protect yourself. You were taught how to be liked. And being liked has never kept anyone safe. You keep waiting for happiness to come from the outside. From love, success, validation, approval. But what if happiness isn't the goal? What if it was never supposed to be? What if what you need isn't peace but power? Not power over others, not arrogance, not cruelty, but the kind of power that anchors you, that shields you, that says I don't need you to understand me, I understand myself. The kind of power that can walk away, that can draw a line, that can hold a boundary without guilt. That's the kind of power they never taught you, because they couldn't control it, and they can't control you once you find it. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." And before you reject that, think about your life. How many times have you chosen to be loved, only to be disrespected? How many times have you chosen to be soft, only to be stepped on? There is nothing noble about weakness. There is nothing holy about self-abandonment. You think you're choosing peace, but you're just choosing to be passive. And passivity is not kindness. It's fear. Fear of confrontation. Fear of rejection. Fear of standing in your full, unapologetic truth. You don't need happiness. You need to become the kind of person who cannot be shaken, who can hold their ground, who does not beg for love but commands respect by the way they carry themselves. Because that kind of peace, the one that comes from real inner strength, cannot be taken. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be destroyed. And the moment you stop chasing happiness and start building power, everything in your life begins to change. You stop performing. You stop pleasing. You stop pretending. You become real. You become whole. And in that wholeness there is a kind of peace deeper than happiness, a peace built on truth. That's what you're really looking for. Not the feeling of being liked, but the feeling of being unshakable, unapologetic, alive. You weren't born weak. You were made that way, trained, shaped, softened, not because the world wanted you safe, but because it wanted you small. From the beginning they taught you to obey, to wait your turn, to not speak unless spoken to say sorry even when you did nothing wrong. You were rewarded for being quiet, polite, manageable. Every time you suppressed your anger, you were told you were mature. Every time you let someone cross your boundary without flinching, you were told you were easy to love. And so you learned, not by words but by survival, that power was dangerous, that it made people uncomfortable, that it would cost you affection, and because you needed love more than anything else, you hid it. You buried your fire under layers of smiles. You traded your voice for validation, and slowly they got what they wanted. Not a person but a puppet, someone who plays nice, stays small, and never challenges the script. That's the system you were born into, one where obedience is called virtue, one where defiance is pathologized as selfishness or rebellion, one where women are called hysterical for expressing rage, and men are called unstable for showing emotion, unless that emotion fits the mold. Keep the peace. Stay in line. Don't upset anyone. Don't be too much. Don't want too much. Don't take up space. That's what they drilled into you through school, family, church, social media, and not because they were evil, because they were trained the same way. Generations of people learning to survive by shrinking. People who feared power because they never had it. People who projected their guilt onto you every time you reach for more. So now when you finally start waking up, when you start feeling the pull to stand, to say no, to draw the line, the guilt hits you like a wave, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something new, something forbidden. You're breaking a contract you never agreed to, the unspoken agreement that says, if you play by the rules, you'll be safe. But you've played by the rules, and you're still suffering. You've silenced yourself, softened your edge, made yourself palatable, and still they left. Still they judged you. Still you're exhausted. So ask yourself who benefits from your guilt, who wins when you stay quiet, who profits from your obedience. Because it's not you. The more you betray yourself to be accepted, the more you lose yourself. You start forgetting what you want, what you feel, what you know. You start second-guessing your instincts, distrusting your emotions, questioning your memory. You become a stranger to yourself while pretending to be someone everyone else likes. But here's the truth. You were never supposed to be liked by everyone. You were supposed to be whole. And that wholeness includes rage. It includes instinct. It includes the ability to look someone in the eye and say that's enough. But when you've been taught that anger is dangerous, when you've been raised to avoid conflict like it's fire, reclaiming your power feels like sin, like betrayal, like losing your soul, when in fact it's the only way to save it. Because what they called rebellion is actually clarity. What they called selfishness is self-respect. What they called too much was just you finally becoming real. There is a reason why systems, whether they're families or governments, always try to suppress individual power. Because once a person becomes sovereign within themselves, they can't be guilted, can't be coerced, can't be manipulated by shame, approval, or fear. They stop following rules that were made to keep them docile. They stop apologizing for existing, and that is dangerous to every structure that feeds on obedience. So if you feel guilt rising as you reclaim yourself, let it rise, let it burn. That guilt isn't your enemy. It's the boundary between your old self and your new one, the threshold between the person you were trained to be and the person you actually are. Step through it, because you will never build real peace if you are still afraid of your own power. And the truth is, most of your suffering didn't come from being too much. It came from never being enough for yourself. That ends now. You've been told that power corrupts, that wanting it makes you arrogant, dangerous, cold. But that's only half the truth. The real danger isn't power. It's the absence of it. It's what happens to you when you have no say in your own life. When you can't speak up without shaking. When you can't walk away without crumbling. When your peace depends on other people's moods, approval, or permission. That's not freedom. That's bondage. And that's the state most people are in. Emotionally dependent, spiritually silenced, psychologically castrated. Not because they're broken, but because they never learned to own themselves. So let's ask the real question. What does power actually look like? It's not about dominating others. It's not about screaming louder, winning arguments, or pretending nothing touches you. Real power is internal. It's silent. It's the ability to sit in a room full of noise and not betray your own voice. It's walking into a situation that used to unravel you and staying centered. It's having the strength to not react, not chase, not explain, not because you don't care, but because you've already chosen yourself, and that choice is final. Power is not the mask you wear in public. It's the core you carry when no one is watching. It's the part of you that doesn't need applause to feel worthy, or revenge to feel strong. It doesn't need to be liked. It doesn't need to be feared. It simply is. And when you access that kind of power, you stop performing. You stop seeking validation from people who don't even respect themselves. You stop wasting your breath trying to prove your value. You become untouchable, not because you've built walls, but because you've built spine. But here's the truth no one prepares you for. Stepping into power is lonely at first. It means setting boundaries that upset people. It means letting go of the roles that once made you feel safe. The pleaser, the fixer, the one who always says yes. It means losing relationships that only survived as long as you stayed small. But that loneliness isn't punishment, it's purification. You're not being abandoned, you're being recalibrated. Power strips away the noise. It shows you who's real, who respects your no, who celebrates your growth, not just your compliance. And once you taste that clarity, you never want to go back. Because nothing is heavier than a life lived in submission. A life where your truth stays stuck in your throat, where your needs are always too much, where your soul is edited to be acceptable. That's not love, that's quiet self-erasure. And the longer you stay in that version of yourself, the more you bleed for other people's comfort. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't say choose cruelty, he said choose strength. Choose what sustains your power, even when it costs you your comfort. Because no amount of happiness can replace the feeling of being whole, of knowing you have your own back. That if everything fell apart, you wouldn't. That if no one clapped for you, you'd still rise. That is power. Not perfection, not fearlessness, not dominance, just a relentless commitment to your own center. And when you start to live like that, things change. People react. Some respect it, some resent it, but all of them feel it. And that's the shift. When your presence speaks louder than your words. When your silence says, I'm not here to be picked. I've already chosen. You stop chasing and start attracting. Not because you've become some polished, idealized version of yourself, but because you've stopped hiding. You've burned the mask. You've stepped into the room as you are. Whole, clear, firm. And if they can't handle it, let them leave. If they can't hold space for your strength, set them free. Because the moment you shrink again just to keep them, you've lost the very thing that made you powerful in the first place. And you've come too far to betray yourself now. There comes a moment, after the shedding, the silence, the solitude, when something settles inside you. Not pride, not ego, but presence, a kind of quiet gravity that wasn't there before. You feel it when you speak and don't need to explain, when you say no and don't flinch, when you walk away, not with anger, but with clarity. That's when you know you've crossed the threshold. You are no longer chasing peace. You are carrying it. You are no longer trying to be strong. You are. And now comes the part no one talks about. What you do with that power. Because it's not just about healing. It's not just about protecting yourself. It's about choosing what kind of world you want to build now that you're no longer a prisoner in someone else's. Power, real power, comes with responsibility. Not the kind others demand from you, but the kind you demand from yourself. The responsibility to speak when others stay silent, to stand when it would be easier to blend in, to no longer betray your instincts for the sake of fitting into places you've already outgrown. Power is not the destination, it's the foundation, the starting point for everything that comes next. And that's where most people stop. They taste strength and they settle. They feel respected for the first time and think the work is done. But that's just the beginning, because the true test is not whether you find your power, it's whether you live from it, every day, especially when it costs you something, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it's lonely, because it will be. Not everyone will follow you into this version of your life. Some will beg you to go back, some will say you've changed, and they're right. You've changed the rules, you've changed your standards, you've changed the story you're willing to live in. That's not betrayal, that's evolution. And evolution is violent to those who refuse to grow. So yes, there will be grief for the people who preferred your silence, for the parts of you that only existed to survive. But that grief is holy. It means the old version of you has died, and in its place, someone new has emerged. Not perfect, not polished, but sovereign, no longer ruled by the need to be liked, no longer driven by the fear of loss, no longer chasing the illusion of happiness. You've stopped asking for permission, and now the question changes. It's no longer how do I protect myself? It becomes what am I here to build now that I belong to myself? Because that's what power makes possible, not dominance, but direction. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop surviving and start leading, not others, yourself. And from that leadership, everything else aligns. You attract different people, make different choices, speak different truths, and the ones who resonate will find you, not because you're performing for them, but because your power creates a signal only the real ones can hear. This is what Machiavelli understood. Power is not about cruelty, it's about sovereignty, about knowing what hill you will die on and who you will never be again, about walking into every room already whole, already enough, already home. So stop chasing happiness like it's a prize at the end of pain. Start building the kind of strength that makes you untouchable, not because you're hardened, but because you're anchored, because the war is over. You are no longer at war with yourself. That is the highest kind of peace, and no one can give it to you. You have to earn it. You have to become it. And now you have. You didn't come here to be liked. You didn't come here to perform. You came here to remember who the hell you are. And now that you know, don't ever go back.